Please, speak freely.
Welcome to the podcast of Boba Fett, Explosion Alex After Show, breaking down, discussing and reviewing each and every episode of Disney Plus original series, The Book of Boba Fett. My name's Don Black, and joining me, Ashley Hobley.
Hey Dylan, excited to be here to talk about Rancors and hover bikes and fruit.
70s, 80s biker gang, or whatever the hell that was.
As I tweeted out, what I got reminded of was Power Rangers, because they've all got very brightly coloured bikes.
It was right. It's like the most bright thing I've ever seen on Tatooine, to be honest. But
they're all different colours, so you can tell them apart.
They must mean they're going to hang around for more than one episode.
Probably. You'd hope so,
Probably.
if the end of the episode is anything to go by.
True. Gotta get them allies. This week's episode, Chapter 3, The Streets of Mos Espa. Director, Robert Rodriguez. Written by Jon Favreau. I know I say it every week. Maybe there's an episode he hasn't written. I don't know. Synopsis was... Real synopsis. Boba Fett must deal with two very different threats.
Wow.
I know.
Really?
Yeah,
I mean, last week's was Boba Fett faces new challenges on Tatooine, so, I mean, just threats.
It wasn't when we recorded.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
The synopsis was watch the episode now. What are your overall thoughts on this week's episode?
Yeah, it was good. Like, really interesting build. Obviously, we're building up, like, the crime family, I guess. Getting a bunch of new recruits this week. We're sort of getting a clearer picture of where probably the season's going to go with this Pike Syndicate that, you know, he's going to be up against. Yeah, interesting episode. Obviously, it's interesting that, like, we got a bunch of new characters last week, and this episode they're kind of just written out. It's like, last week we've got these new huts.
Yeah. And
then they're gone. And we got the Wookiee, Carcerian, or whatever his name is, BK. He's not coming back again. He did get a cool moment, though. And then remember all those Tusken Raiders that you've come to love over the last 3 episodes? All dead. So good times.
All the Star Wars series, like all the Disney Plus ones, have this thing. And I don't know if it's like the shows are written so they can have those social media posters, but... Like, I don't remember if they did it for the Mandalorian Season 2, but, like, between this and Clone Wars, you know how each episode of Clone Wars, they would introduce a character? Oh, no, they did do it for Mandalorian Season 2, didn't they? Because they had, like, the Ahsoka poster, and...
Yeah.
It's like, each episode, introduce a new character, give them a poster.
Yeah.
So you gotta have all the cool characters.
So you go, yeah, get ready for the Black Series toy coming soon.
Pretty much. It's weird. I don't know. I enjoyed the episode because we finally get done with all the fucking prolonged flashbacks, and I did make sure to write down after we complained about it last week that the flashbacks finally, like, because we were saying last week the flashbacks were good, but also they somehow need to connect to the present, which they do this episode. But again, I just feel like we're 3 episodes in. It's a 7-episode
They did the same
series.
thing. They focused on the tank. Admittedly, this time they kind of had a reason, because it explains where Boba was when it's BK, right? The Wookiee dude.
Kristan or whatever.
Yeah.
Kristan, yeah. That thing, yeah.
Yeah. Violent.
Very violent. Yeah, because it's like you could predict from the outset of the show that it's leading to this gang war thing, but we've taken 3 episodes to get to the gang war, or like the start of it. It's almost like the first 2 episodes is let's spend a very long time explaining how Boba Fett survived the Sarlacc pit and then gets to where he is now, and now the show actually starts now.
Yeah,
like it's almost like it's like a setup, and then it's like a very prolonged prologue, and now this is actually what the show's about.
Yeah, definitely.
I did like, so, I don't know, briefly touch on the flashback because there's barely on it. Unlike other weeks, it's the shortest segment of the episode, actually, but the flashback stuff obviously they have him go to the Pikes, try to claim the money he set up from last week with the whole train heist thing. Oh, by the way, because I didn't realize this because I've never actually seen it, but did you? I don't know if you saw it. Someone on Twitter was sharing around that train sequence was actually like nearly shot for shot from Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh,
If you
okay.
saw that. Yeah,
No.
like people, the train crashed in the distance with all the.
Was there a massive
Tuscans.
train with like
There was.
in Lawrence of Arabia, like
Yep.
hovering?
Not
But then a
hovering.
bunch of guys with lasers came along.
No.
No.
But that shot of the Tuscans running down the hill towards the train is shot for shot from Lawrence of Arabia, apparently. So cool.
Have you
trivia.
watched Lawrence of Arabia?
I have not seen Lawrence of Arabia.
Okay,
which is
well,
why
I don't
did
feel as
not-
bad.
Yeah. Which is why I did not see this, but I thought it was a cool little bit. Fuck was I saying? Oh, so he goes to Pikes, tries to get the money, blah 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 blah. The Pikes all go murder everyone. The funny thing about that to me is just it's both like it makes you go. It's like the opposite of a Uncle Owen, Beru, whatever her name was, like Luke's aunt uncle moment. Obviously coming back to seeing them all burnt to a crisp or whatever, and then it's also the opposite sort of playing of emotions from Attack of the Clones, where Attack of the Clones has Anakin go kill everyone, and then you see them all like burnt and on fire, and you're supposed to feel like a mix of fuck yeah, they deserve to die, but also this guy's losing his fucking marbles. Whereas watching this, you're supposed to obviously feel sorry for them. It's funny just how far over the course of a couple Disney Plus TV shows, they're turning around how as an audience you're supposed to feel for the Tuscans. Oh, do you reckon we'll get flashbacks? Well, I suppose we will. But what do you reckon the end goal is for the flashbacks now? Is it just to see how he deals with the whatever gang? I don't know, the stupid...
Yeah, I would.
The other 80s biker gang thing?
Yeah, the the really 80s biker gang, yeah. I would assume so. That would be that, and obviously leading up to him getting his armor back and that kind of stuff. Like, I assume that's where we're going. We'll probably keep getting these flashbacks, try to fill everything in. So, especially, at least we'll get like the first meeting of Fennec and Boba. Was it where we explain how he keeps her alive, that kind of stuff.
I don't know if they need to explain how he keeps her alive.
Well, yeah, but the first time they meet.
Yeah, I feel like that would be a good place to end the flashbacks, is him... You just do the exact same shot from... What was that, like the 4th episode of whatever it was of Mandalorian Season 1? You do the exact same shot, except for this time, obviously, you add an extra one to show it's him, and you leave it there. Because I don't know if they've ever done maths or like shown us or tell us in the show. We don't really know how long between then and Season 2 of Mando coming back to Tatooine is. So... They don't need to like justify the whatever we worked it out to be, the roughly 3 years or whatever they need to cover between the series. So you can probably just leave it there. But that would be a fine point. But I feel like at this point the flashbacks is he has to go, I guess, kill or...
Yeah, he's going to murder that biker gang.
Yeah. I feel like it would be dumb if he doesn't at this stage.
But then he realizes there's always a bigger fish.
Yeah. The Pikes.
Yeah.
But I did appreciate how the flashbacks now set up this, because obviously his relationship with the Pikes in the past is going to dissolve now because he doesn't get that situation worked out the way they wanted it to be, and then now he's carried forward to the future this distrust or whatever, disdain for the Pikes, I guess. Which, again, coming back to what I was saying last week, that helps justify the two parts of the story or whatever, which is a bit better. All right, so present day stuff. Obviously, the main thing
are the Pikes something we've known about before, or?
Yeah, I think I said last week the Pikes are in Solo. The Pikes are obviously mentioned a lot in like Clone Wars. Pikes are mentioned in books and stuff like that, but the Pikes aren't mentioned in any of the core trilogy or whatever, the core 9 movies. They're not, well, the core movies don't deal a lot into gang warfare or whatever. But it's definitely mentioned. I'm definitely sure they mentioned Solo, because Solo is the only movie that really makes sure to chuck out all the different names of the gangs or whatever, the crime syndicates, I guess. Yeah, proper name, crime syndicates.
Okay.
Because I think there's, I don't know, somewhere around like 6 or 7 like big crime syndicates, I think. Like obviously the Huts is one, Pikes is another. At one stage Darth Maul has his whole thing
Crimson
going
Dawn.
on. Yeah, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's all the crime syndicates, which the show seems to be heading towards having gang warfare between, at least now by the end of this episode, it's like the Fett. What are we calling Boba's crime syndicate? The Fets? I don't know.
Okay.
The Fets, I guess. And then the Pikes, but I, again, wouldn't be surprised if more crime syndicates get involved by the end of the show. Although it would have to be for bigger reasons than fighting over Tatooine at this stage, because even the Hutts, rightfully so say in this episode, it's a fucking desert
Worthless.
shit planet. Like, why are we fighting over this? It's a nothing. So, but again, I'd love to see Kira show up. So, just if only, so I know they're going to do something more of that character. So, what the fuck was I going to say? The gang, the bikes, right? So, touch on them, biker gangs, present day.
Yes.
Did you, other than the joke before, did you actually like them?
Yeah, I kind of like them. I mean, it's amusing the way they, they get brought together. It's like it very feels like a side quest thing, where this random guy comes up and says, "Hey, these people have been stealing from me," and then you go investigate the side quest. It turns out like he's the bad guy the whole time, and so you become allies with the people that he thinks. You know what I mean? You played that side quest before,
Yeah.
the video game.
I think it's funny how cyberpunk they are.
Yeah.
So they got all the body
Their
modifications.
droid parts and stuff, yeah. But yeah, it's quite amusing, Boba obviously being quite old, getting a bunch of youths to help him out. It's like, it very much has old man. They very much have a get off my porch old man.
Well, they
vibe
tell him
to
not. They even call
essentially,
him an old man, so.
Yeah.
Which is fair. He is an old man.
Yeah.
Also, shout outs, because I've been watching that Yellow Jacket show.
I assumed that's what you were about to bring up, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, as soon as they show the cast, I was like, oh, is that the girl from Yellow Jackets? So,
I don't know.
shout outs. Sophie
Thatcher.
Yeah. She's like one of the main 3 girls, so.
Yeah, and then the other main guys apparently been like the 100 and Peaky Blinders and stuff.
Yeah, Jordan Bolger is
yeah.
in the 100, and the thing I know him most from is that movie with Macy Williams in it. I can't remember what it's called though, but he's in that as well. That's it. Yeah, that thing. So, British thing. I think that was like the one thing she did like outside of Game of Thrones, like before
During
Game
that
of Thrones
period.
finished.
Yeah.
That was cool though. So yeah, I don't mind I hope they hang around, because not only because I was complaining last week how, and I'm glad they have a character in this episode point out and literally be like, hey, no one has respect for you, because it's like, why does anyone respect Boba Fett? Because he's literally one dude who walks in with this other girl, sits on a throne. They kill the dude in
They had 4 people.
Yeah, they pick up 2 Gamorrean guards. Cool story. By the way, shout outs to Boba being a good employer and letting him use the
tank, the healing tank.
Yeah, the Bacta tank after he gets hurt. So shout outs. At one stage they're 4 people and they're walking
Plus a
around
droid.
going like, plus a droid walking around. Being like,
well,
it
seems like there's a bunch of droids, but yeah.
None of them can fight.
No, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. They've now picked up a biker gang, I guess.
Yeah. Just recruit.
I mean, they proved themselves useless. I was waiting for them to be just like, actually just water thieves who couldn't do jack shit, but at least they proved they can fight when they have the... Yeah, what do you think of that fight scene with
Black
BK?
Caesarian? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty brutal, pretty, like, obviously, Boba's very much unprepared. So, he definitely has the advantage. Of course, there's like the perfect timing for them to come flying in out of nowhere to come and save him. But yeah, even he, if we're doing as we usually do, wrestling booking, BK came out of this looking quite strong. Even though he lost, he came out looking strong.
He did look strong. I actually thought he was about to bite that Gamorrean guard's head off at one stage. So
yeah.
But yeah, definitely gnarly. As far as I guess it's also because
probably should have been some blood on Boba's hands. You would assume.
Yeah, it's the Star Wars trying to keep it PG thing, but yeah. There should have been. If this was if Corridor Crew did a version of this scene, it would be like it would be like limbs flying off,
hits a vessel, yeah. Boba loses a finger.
Yeah, the amount of times Boba, who we've already gathered is still having to use the bacta tank to like sort of recover from either wounds from escaping, like long-term wounds from escaping the Sarlacc pit, or
shit that's happened
that was caused
that we're about to
recently, or something. Yeah, like something he's still recovering from. To the degree, which is fine. It's not the first time you see a character do that. Obviously, Darth Vader literally has to use a bacta tank. Live in one when he's not. He floats in them, and then he gets in his damn suit, and then he needs a suit to survive. So it's not like the first time a Star Wars character who is like tough needs the bacta tank and whatever to survive. That's fine, but as far as I'm aware at this stage, I'm like, I feel like there has to be like he has to get his ass kicked at some stage in the flashbacks or something to explain that, because the whole Sarlacc pit thing was he was barely in there, and then the major wounds he suffered was he flamethrowed his way out, so he like suffered 3rd degree wounds to his body that he did to himself to escape. But other than that, I don't know if he needs the back, because he's already healed in the past when we see him now, so, or like mostly healed, so. BK was fight. Scene was cool. I'm glad they confirmed that's who he was, because obviously they didn't say his name last episode, so I was just presuming that's who it was. So that's cool. Bringing in a character that was first introduced in one of the comic books into the show is cool. Rancor. Got to mention Rancor. I haven't brought that up yet. And most importantly, Danny. So here's how I knew this episode was rejected. So the Rancor comes in. I see Danny Trejo, the Rancor handler, and straight away I go, Robert Rodriguez directed this episode. Because it's like, who else is making sure that Danny Trejo is playing someone if it's not Robert Rodriguez directing?
Who else is getting Danny Trejo a job? Sorry, yeah. In Star Wars.
To be fair, he gives him most of his jobs. So. But yeah, what'd you make of the whole Rancor thing? Because I don't know. It's funny because as soon as it was happening, I'm like, oh man, all the fuckboys on Twitter are going to get annoyed that they're doing this whole like the Rancor impressions.
Where's the old Rancor keeper?
And all this sort of stuff and whatever else. Like, they're making Rancors too soft. I'm like, but then I'll be like, rewatch Return of the Jedi, where there's literally a dude crying over his Rancor dying and stuff. So, but apparently Bob is going to ride it. So,
yeah.
See that come to fruition.
Yeah, keen. It is weird that like he says it's like a calf still, when we know Rancors can be much smaller from what we've seen on the Bad Batch.
Well, the Bad Batch one was small, but I wouldn't say it was like the size difference between the one we saw on, like the one we saw on the Bad Batch was a baby. He said this one's like basically a cub, I guess. Like it's
a calf, yeah,
like a bit older, but
yeah, that's fair.
I feel like it's not fully grown, but it's neither the size of the baby we saw on Bad Batch. So I think it adds up.
I love the Boba loves it so much straight away, just like it's a dog or something, you know. He's willing to tell the robot to go away. You know, he's more focused on the Rancor, yeah.
For a second, until the stupid robot.
Until he realizes,
Mayor's being a fuckhead again. We mentioned it last week, but again, when he's like, I'm going to ride it, I'm like, oh, cool, another Dune reference. Like, now just
I've rode things that are much bigger than this.
Yeah, but it just makes me think.
Are we going to see him ride something even bigger than this next week? In one of the flashbacks?
I mean, he said he did, so.
He rode that dragon thing that they murdered in The Mandalorian?
I mean, as far as we've seen in Star Wars, that is the biggest thing on Tatooine. So, and that would be the most Dune. If you want to commit to doing the Frank Herbert,
The Dune bit.
bit, then do the riding the snake worm thing in Star Wars. I don't know how they would explain how he did that, but I mean, it's not a throwaway line, obviously.
What's something like a worm that you could call it and get away with it?
I don't know. They could invent something else that's not that.
It's a sand slug.
Yeah. Well, that other thing's like a dragon, whatever they call it.
Yeah.
In Mando. So I guess a sand. What's wyvern? Whatever they call it. Yeah. Sand wyvern. Maybe that's a thing. The other thing I was going to say is the continued. Again, we get this other bloody Camino thing at the start. And you can definitely tell now that one shot of the kid.
It's definitely his face.
I was like, that is a CGI face.
Well, I think you can tell because you know it's definitely not.
The actor.
Yeah.
Whatever his name is. I can't remember.
Daniel Logan.
Yeah. But yeah, it just makes me hope they do something more than that, because this, if the whole purpose of showing the Camino flashbacks is solely to remind audiences who may not be aware that kid from Attack of the Clones is the character in this show, sure, do it once. But at this stage, they've done it every single episode, so I'm like, it has to lead to something else. And I know, like, we have the whole is bringing in the Bad Batch crossover sort of.
Well, do we know if Boba knows Omega?
We don't. As far as we're aware, Omega and Boba have never met, which makes sense. Omega is like a character invented a year ago, so that's fine. I think I still stand by them meeting would be good. I don't think that's committing too hard to too many like crossover characters between shows. I think you could have Omega come in, and then people watching the show aren't confused. Like you can definitely do it in a way that's like, having watched The Bad Batch and this, you're like, oh, Omega. Otherwise, it can just be like, who's this girl? Oh, she's Boba's sister. Whoa.
Man, imagine if we get Omega and the Bad Batch.
I don't know if
Temuera Morrison has to play all those dudes.
That would actually be funny, to be fair. But the other thing I was thinking is, because obviously, how does The Bad Batch end? Season 1. Test your memory. Camino gets destroyed.
Yeah.
So you're having all these moments where Boba's flashing back to his childhood, specifically on Camino, and they're showing us Camino a lot in the show, but that's a place that we also just found out in another show. The show that literally came before this one is actually destroyed now. So it makes me wonder if Boba holds any sort of love for that place, and, you know, if they did bring in Omega and she told him that, you know, the place that her and him were quote unquote born is lost, like if that would affect him at all. It's just, there's definitely, I feel like at this stage with the show, I'm thinking of way more interesting like plot through things than the show's actually doing. But I don't know if they're still trying to commit to this, it's a limited run 7-episode thing, or long term, or, you know, or they cross him back into the Mando, or whatever the hell they do. I don't know, but there is interesting things.
Maybe that's the source of water he's going to get for the future. He's going to import water from Camino.
Maybe.
To Tatooine.
I thought it was the throwaway line too about Tatooine once being covered in water.
Being water.
I was like, I don't know if that's a thing I knew about, but there you go. I don't think I've got it. I think we've hit most of the things. Yeah, what do you think's going on with? How do you think this war's going to get going? What do you think he's going to do next episode? Who's he going to call him for help? How's he going to prepare?
I'm not sure. I assume we're going to see him meet up with these 3 families that they talk about at the start of the episode.
Yeah, I can't remember who they said. They said something like Trandoshans, something else, like 3 different. Yeah,
3 different families. So I assume they meet with them and like come up with some sort of plan of attack, or at least see how well these alliances are going. See if anybody else has turned to the Pikes,
because he definitely needs bodies if he wants to fight a war.
If he wants a war, he needs help.
All right. Yeah. Any other random things I missed? No.
We got a little cameo from what's her name from The Mandalorian?
Oh, that doesn't count though. That was literally like either a CGI thing in
It was
the
a blink,
background or
yeah.
like someone
It
another.
was
woman
probably
playing
like
that
a
character.
stunt double, yeah.
But yes, I recognize that they're like
Like,
they
oh,
both they tick two boxes. They're like, oh, better reference to Mandalorian. Let's have them placing those helmets on the spikes, which is what you see in the opening of the episode, the first time they go there in the Mando season 1. And then let's make sure we have whatever that character's name is and the two droids off in the distance. I'm like, yep, okay. I don't know if that was necessary, but very good. Like, it's not, it's literally a show that came out
just
a couple years
nod,
ago.
yeah.
I don't know like how nostalgic
Last year.
that character is going to be. Yeah, last year, exactly.
Year before, yeah.
All right. Oh, and just before I wrap up, I'll say it again. Watching this, there's that one stage where he's like riding the bantha across the desert, and I'm just looking at all this sand going, I'm both equally looking forward to Obi-Wan in presumably the middle of this year or whenever that drops, and equally, fuck, I'm going to be sick of looking at sand by the end of this year. I'm going to be so sick of looking at sand.
Is that the trick? This is Disney's long-term plan to screw over Warner. You know, so everybody would be too sick of sand to go see Dune 2.
I mean, it's a play for sure. we're gonna be watching this till February. Sand, all set on Tatooine. Then we're gonna go to Obi-Wan. I reckon around June, July. Sand,
A lot of sand.
all fucking sand. And then we're gonna get apparently Mando, I guess, around the same slot, that December slot, at the end of the year. And guess what? There's no way they're not coming back to Tatooine.
Do you reckon we see Mandalorian? He'll stoop to calling in Mandalorians for help?
I mean, that would be interesting. And I wouldn't be against it, because it is technically a spin-off from that. And he could say he owes him a favour. So, you know, I'm not against it. So, we shall see. But maybe he doesn't want to ask for help either. I don't know. And maybe Din isn't really a come help out friends. I don't know where he is. I don't know. There's definitely going to be a time gap between Mando season 2 and 3. So you just wonder how different that character is going to be after what happened in the events of the season finale. You know, like there definitely has to be a change of personality to what we got used to for that character for 2 seasons, I think. So, all right, that'll do it. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the podcast of Boba Fett. Please subscribe to Holocron Entries for all our other Star Wars shows, including The Mandalorians when that comes back, The Very Bad Batch, and whatever we call the Obi-Wan podcast. For all our Twitters, head to explosionnetwork.com/Twitter. Join our Discord, explosionnetwork.com/Discord even. If you like this and you'd like to tell us, head on over to explosionnetwork.com/support to donate as little as $1 to help out the show. And until next week, drink your bantha juice.